keeping promises to yourself is a declaration of self-worth. Hi, hello. Welcome to Mary's Cup of Tea, the self-love podcast for women, though all self-lovers are welcome here. I'm Mary. I write and speak about self-love, and I'm best known for my book, The Gift of Self-Love, and I also host retreats for women. And this is the podcast that will inspire you to love yourself. Real quick, before we dive in, I want to make sure you know about my book, The Gift of Self-Love. It's a workbook to help you build confidence, recognize your worth, and learn to love who you are. It's available anywhere books are sold. Thousands of people have it, love it, and have told me that it has greatly benefited their self-love journey, and I hope it'll do the same for you. And now let's get into the podcast. I just got back from getting an MRI scan done, and why didn't nobody tell me how scary that was? I didn't think I was somebody who would be claustrophobic, but dang, once they slid me into that machine, I had to press the panic button, and then I had a moment, and everybody was trying to calm me down, and a sweet, sweet, sweet grape of a radiologist offered to hold my head as they put me in the machine. Like, she literally caressed my head on the other side. And that just helps so much. So thank you, Tina. I appreciate that greatly. You have no idea. I'm just an anxious grape when it comes to medical stuff like that. I don't know really where it comes from. The only thing I can think of is that I used to randomly faint as a kid. It's happened maybe like 5 times before throughout my adolescence, and they vaguely called it vasovagal syncope, which literally just means unexplained fainting. Never really figured out what that was. I kind of just grew out of it. But whenever I get that panicky feeling, I'm always scared that I'm going to lose consciousness. And I have like passed out and hurt myself before. Speaking of hurting myself, the reason why I got an MRI is because I've been having really bad lower back pain for about the last 6 months. I think I complained to you about it on the podcast before, and it got better for a couple weeks briefly, and now it's back with a freaking vengeance. So I decided to start seeking answers and figuring out what it is. Right now, I'm sitting on the floor, kind of reclined, and this is inspired by a conversation that I had with Hilary Hahn over on Instagram. We were chatting in the DMs, and in case you don't know who Hilary Hahn is, she's a very famous, incredible, talented, breathtaking prodigy of a violinist. Recently, a few months back, I saw that she had to cancel a few shows because she also had some stuff going on with her health. I believe it was also nerve related. So we were talking in the DMs, and she's like, why don't you do the podcast laying down? Like literally laying however you need to be comfortable. I thought that was a really good point. So it inspired this whole episode today of just like small things that we can do, small, tiny, tiny acts of self-care that have a big impact on just how we feel and our life. And, you know, I started texting my friends little updates called small joys. So instead of constantly catching them up on like drama going on, or, you know, how sometimes we can fall into a pattern of just using our friends to complain to. Well, I wanted to create connection that was more positive. So especially friends that I haven't talked to in a little while, I sent them a little text and said, hey, hi, I miss you. How are you? Here are just some small joys. And I sent a little slideshow of photos, one of which was thrifting a beautiful burgundy leather jacket for $5. The leather jacket of my dreams. It's like a thin leather, and it's this rich red color that I'm obsessed with. And I cannot wait to wear it on my trip to France. I'm taking my little sister to France soon. It's going to be our first sister trip and her first time abroad. So that jacket will be perfect. What else did I tell my friends was small joys? Oh, I planted I call it BV for short because I can never remember the full name. It's like bougainvillea. I don't think I'm saying that right. Bougainvillea. Like, you know that pink plant? It has these bright pink papery flowers. It kind of feels like paper mache, like the bright pink flowers that grow on it. I don't know how to say the name, so I call it BV for short, which is also stands for medically as bacterial vaginosis. And I texted my neighbor, actually, she's a doctor in residency, and I'm like, hey, my BV is growing. I saw yours is too. Imagine getting a text. And then I followed up with a photo, and it made more sense to her that I was not, in fact, talking about my vagina. But anyway, yeah, so I've just been doing these small joy updates and wanted to give you a little personal episode about small acts of self-care that have been making a big difference for me lately. And the first one is listening to classical music. 10 out of 10 recommend. That's partially why I was thinking about Hilary Hahn and decided to reach out to her, because I went on a binge just listening to all her performances and watching them. And I'm not somebody who's like really into music. Like I didn't grow up with any of my parents like giving me that kind of ear or knack for music, especially like classical or any type of classic. But I've just been playing it like in the house while we're making breakfast or while we're cleaning, or just like when I'm on my own working, instead of doing those, you know how when you go on YouTube and you search for like study or like work music, it'll often pop up like lo-fi beats. And after a while of listening to these damn lo-fi beats, I am so sick of them. I can't even tell you. I'm so sick of hearing the same sound just over and over and over again. I feel like I am going crazy. Classical music feels like I'm just doing something productive for my mental health without physically doing anything. You know what I mean? It's like osmosis. And I'm not going to lie, it is making me feel like a pretty cultured individual, especially because now I can name some famous artists like Hilary Hahn. Highly recommend listening to her. I'm going to link it for you in the description of this podcast episode. Okay, another small thing I've been doing that has just been bringing me so much life. It's probably been about a year since I seriously implemented this habit and stuck with it. Reading fiction before bed. Every single night before I go to bed, I read. And I've always like kind of read before bed, but now I've made it like a rule to read fiction. I don't know if you listened to my episode with Victoria Hutchins a couple months back, but she's a poet and a yoga teacher. We sat in her living room and we talked about so many things. The episode is titled How to Stay Hopeful, Joyful, and Soulful. And one of the things we talked about in there is reading fiction specifically. I just feel so passionately about us bringing in more art into our lives, and not just like art for the sake of self-development, but art for the sake of just art, just beauty, just thought-provoking, this is interesting, different, new, a culture, an experience, a story, a piece of somebody else's mind that you don't have to fully understand in order to be impacted by it on a visceral level. That kind of art is what I am interested in. And I think right now, especially in our culture, aside from social media, instant gratification, AI, whatever, I also think that politically speaking, like art is usually used as a form of rebellion, right? Like art can instigate movements. Art is the first thing that is burned. Books literally get banned and thrown out and also burned because they are intimidating to people in power when we think differently, when we expand our minds. So to me, like leaning into art and classical music, reading fiction, there's so many other mediums, but when I read, I feel like not only am I doing something good for my brain on an individual level, like from a mental health standpoint, but I also feel like as a collective, I'm a part of a mini resistance, or maybe it's not mini. I'm a part of like a subconscious subliminal resistance, right? Where I'm like, no, I'm not just going to consume whatever you try to feed me on a gold plate in, the attention grabbing sphere of the interwebs. I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to choose what I want to sit with, what I want to digest, what I want to noodle on, what I want to chew on and struggle for. And I think that's why reading in general just like is such a, it just develops us so deeply, is because it accesses parts of our brain that we do not get access to otherwise. You know, there's empathy, there's that story, there's even pleasure, even just reading fiction for the sake of pleasure. Like, how many things do you do in your life that are just for the sake of like, this feels good, this tastes good, this is just good, like yum. That kind of energy in many different domains has, it's been more than a small joy. It has been freaking revolutionary for me and my outlook on life. So I hope you can pick up some fiction. What am I reading recently? Great question. Would love to tell you. Hey, self-lover, sorry to interrupt, but do you have my self-love playlist? There's over 300, if not 400 songs on it that are so fun and uplifting and empowering, and I think will really be perfect for when you're getting ready, trying to hype yourself up, dealing with a bad body image day, or anytime you just want a little boost of self-love. These tracks will do it for you. So head to maryscupoftea.com/playlist to get it and know that I am dancing and jamming with you from afar. Cheers. I just started The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Did not know that it was fantasy. I usually am not into fantasy, but again, I'm trying to be so open-minded right now that I'm like, yes, okay, I love that I accidentally picked out a fantasy book. I place library books on hold like in my sleep, and then the library will send me an email notification like, your hold items are ready for you. And then I'll just go and it'll be like, surprise. I'll just pick some from my TBR list or ones that came highly recommended. And The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue somehow made it. It's really good. It's about a girl who cannot be remembered. Nobody remembers her. Like, they can have one interaction with her, and then as soon as she leaves their sight, they completely forget her. So she can't speak her name. She can't write her name. She can't. Oh, and she also lives forever, like a vampire, I guess. So she lives this whole like endless life without any sort of proof of it. Even if she like spills a drink, like I think she spilled coffee on her clothing, the stain instantly wipes away. And that visual of like not even being able to make a mistake. There was this paragraph about it where Addie thinks about it as like, at first she was relieved that the stain didn't stay because, you know, we don't really want stains on our clothes usually. But then the gravity of that sunk in, that there's no proof of her life. And it just gives me, that visual gives me chills because it makes me feel really grateful. Again, like it takes a fantasy book to access like that level of brain chemistry for me to be like, wow, I'm so grateful that I can make mistakes, that there's a sense of permanence in my life, that there's people who remember me, that when I spill coffee on my white dress, that there is a mark of me and that I existed in that moment, imperfectly human. And Addie doesn't get that. So I can't wait to see how that story unfolds. A couple weeks ago, I also finished The Women by Kristin Hannah. Let me tell you my unpopular opinion about that book. Well, let me preface by saying I devoured the book in 2 days. So obviously it's popular for a reason. Like it will grip you. At first, I was super into it and I learned so much. Like, the other day, I went to a new coffee shop and I saw a gentleman with a Vietnam War veteran hat on. And I just like stared at him and reveled in his presence and the fact that he survived that very traumatic time for him as somebody who went to war, and also for like the country and what it did to America, the Vietnam War, that is. And so this book is about a combat nurse who serves in Vietnam War. It's really, really good. Don't get me wrong. And I loved Kristin Hannah's other books, especially The Nightingale. Like The Nightingale was like changed me. You know what I mean? And I love historical fiction just in general. Always as a kid, I've loved historical fiction. When The Women started unfolding in such a way that it was centering men, but also trying really hard not to, it started pissing me off. I'm fine with like, if it's a romance story, like let it be a romance story. I will eat that up all day long. But because I had such high hopes for this book around like her being And I'm not saying that you can't have a relationship with a man if you're a feminist. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. Obviously, I'm in like a very hetero, normal, married relationship dynamic in my own life. But there was things going on with like multiple different dudes, and they were just such tropes that it was just like, it was just disappointing for me, honestly. Okay, that's all. That's my little rant about the women, but still recommend reading it and reading fiction in general. Number 3, adding bright colors to my decor, my wardrobe. Oh my goodness, I'm just like searching for bright colors, especially that Mary's Cup of Tea orange that I really like to use, the one that's like on the cover of my book. I just thrifted bright orange lamps, like giant bright orange lamps, 2 of them for my nightstand. And if you know me, you know I'm like a neutral person. My father, wow. My father was growing up a hoarder. So for me, it's really important to have like a clean, calm space. And I love that people are leaning into maximalism right now, but I just can only do so in doses. So I like pops of bright colors, but I want the foundation to be like a calm, soothing base of neutrals. So thrifting these 2 bright orange lamps for a sacred space like my bedroom felt like a bold move, but nevertheless, I am in love. I cannot make this up. These lamps were sitting there waiting for me. They are the exact hex color code of my book, that Mary's Cup of Tea orange that's on my website, that's like all over my entire online brand identity. Like, it's the exact shade. It's crazy. I'm going to have to post a picture on Instagram for you. But on that note, I was actually out thrifting with, you're not going to believe who. So this brings me to the next small thing that has dramatically improved my life. I went on 2 Bumble BFF dates in the last week. 2 Bumble BFF dates. And when I found those bright orange lamps, I was actually on one of them where we sat at a coffee shop, the coffee shop where I saw the Vietnam War vet, and we talked for 2 hours. And then I had mentioned that I was, into thrifting and constantly looking for home decor stuff. This girl that I met, who is now my friend, turns out that she actually does vintage reselling, like for a living as a business. So she's super into thrifting, both home and fashion stuff. And so she's like, hey, there's a couple stores 10 minutes from here. Do you want to go now? And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And it was just such a soulful afternoon because not only did I make a new friend, but then there was like, this divine intervention of the lamps. And I guess this is the 5th energetic shift that I've made recently that has dramatically improved my life. I said yes to extending this date and going thrifting. Firstly, because I really enjoyed this person and wanted to spend more time with her. But secondly, there's a part of me that's become really comfortable with my life at home, my marriage that I adore, my dog, my house. Like, I have become such a homebody over the years, and I'm blessed to say that because that means home is a safe space for me to actually want to be in. Whereas historically, I was always trying to get out of the house, work out of coffee shops, like not be where my kind of like living renter or living with my parents situation was. And so constantly trying to get out my whole life to now being like, wait a second, am I a homebody? I don't think I'm an introvert still. I'm still an extrovert, but like to really want to just stay home on Saturday nights, I love that about me. But maybe in some ways I might have overcorrected because that's also led to, not being as spontaneous and choosing to hang out with my husband instead of like going out of my way to make friends. Before my back hurt, of course, if I went to go play pickleball and somebody at pickleball was like, hey, do you want to grab dinner? I'd have to be like, no, actually my husband and I have dinner together. And now, and this is like the 5th small act of self-care that has just improved my life, is kind of like energetically prioritizing my individuality, like keeping the me within the we, and letting myself be spontaneous and shooting my husband a text and being like, hey, I'm going to go thrifting and extend this afternoon with my Bumble BFF date. Like, you're on your own, buddy. He is so supportive of that always. Or I recently went to Cuba by myself. I told you all about that in a podcast episode back in January. I had nobody to go with. And then I'm like, why don't I just go by myself? My husband just genuinely didn't really want to go. So I had to respect that. And instead of like guilt tripping him into something that I wanted to do because I didn't want to do it alone, I decided to take the more like aligned, emotionally intelligent, independent path and just go on my own. And this is extended in small ways too. Like, I recently saw a ballet by myself here at Ballet Arizona. They put on incredible performances. I can't believe I missed out on years of not seeing them. And this goes back to the arts thing, like just to be involved in the arts, to support causes that I care about, and being okay with my significant other not always being attached at the hip to me to do so. So doing things alone, putting myself out there to make new friends, girlfriends to do things with that I want, not making my partner be everything for me and fulfill every single, need for me, as is really common in modern day relationships. Like, we put so many things on just one person. We expect from one person. It's a famous quote by Esther Perel. We expect from one person what we used to get from an entire village. Connection, tax purposes, marriage used to be strictly an economic arrangement. And now it has to be like sex and connection and love and romance and maybe children and equal partnership, building a house together, and your partners in like every single domain share every single interest, go to every single event, gathering, hobbies, activities, like constantly being together. That cannot be healthy. And for me now, intentionally keeping the me within the we has been a big act of self-love. Okay, last thing for you. I've talked about this before and I've failed at it over the past few weeks, but I'm really trying to be diligent on sticking to this promise that I'm making myself, which is taking one full day off of social media per week. I call this my weekly social media sabbatical because I would like it for it to coincide with the Jewish Sabbath, where every Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown, I do not check social media. I do not log in. I do not want to go in there. I just need one day to sit with my thoughts, to think, to do other things that don't involve compulsive app opening and scrolling and all of that. And I usually stay off of Instagram. It's not even so much that, but it's just that my brain finds another way to get a dopamine hit from my cell phone. So I'll go on Facebook Marketplace. I'll scroll, track down to refresh there. Then I'll go on Pinterest and I'll justify it to myself and be like, it's not that bad. It's not really technically social media. I use it for inspiration. And I actually do read quite a bit on Pinterest because my algorithm knows that I like really thought-provoking things. But nevertheless, it's short form content. And Friday night to Saturday night for me is about A, not really consuming content at all, but B, if I am, then it has to be long form, reading fiction, watching a film, or seeing a play, going to the theater, you know what I mean? Spending quality time with my friends and family, not being on my phone in any way. But I just break that promise to myself. And I've recently been thinking about how keeping promises to yourself is a declaration of self-worth. When you keep a promise to yourself, even when it's hard and you don't want to, you are communicating energetically that you are, think about this word for a second, trustworthy, worthy of trust. So if you want to build self-trust, especially, and I think self-worth is like this umbrella of self-trust, then I am going to speak for myself. I have to start keeping promises to myself. And the promise of not going on my phone for 24 hours out of the week is one that I'm constantly breaking. And every time I just feel like shit because I know it's a productive promise to myself. Do you know what I mean? It's not like overextending myself kind of promise where I'm trying to force myself to do something I don't want to do. This is something I genuinely want to do. And yet in the moment, the compulsion, addiction, I know a lot of it isn't really our fault. Like these apps are designed that way, but I still want to be stronger than that. And I want to keep promises to myself and kind of flex that muscle of being my word, keeping my word. And I'm so good about keeping my word to other people. It is crucial that I start keeping promises to myself. And I hope you'll join me. Like whatever promise you make to yourself, keep it and see how that feels when you prove to yourself that you can do something that you thought was hard, or that maybe like logistically isn't that hard. Like it's not like physically demanding to not go on social media, but mentally so. It's about breaking a habit that can be hard. That definitely can be hard. But every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are communicating that you are trustworthy and also communicating that you are worth the time, energy, maybe even money and attention that it takes to keep said promise to yourself. Like if you want to take a new class, say it's at your gym or locally in your city, or you want to try something new, right? And every week you're telling yourself on Wednesday nights, I'm going to go take this pottery class. I'm going to go to this bar class. And then Wednesday rolls around and all the excuses come up. You're tired, you're shy, you don't want to go, you don't want to drive, you don't want to pay for it, you don't want to not relax on the couch that night. I completely get that. And usually if you were accountable to somebody else, for example, right, you would take that time, money, energy, and attention because you didn't want to let them down. So now you have to treat yourself as that person that you do not want to let down and invest. Investing is conflated with finance, but it doesn't always have to mean monetarily, fiscally. It can also be with these little small acts of commitment to yourself. Following through, it's such a big boost of confidence. You'll be like, yeah, like I did that. Yeah, I started taking salsa on Thursday nights. Yeah, I also take pottery on Sunday nights. Yeah, I actually promised myself that I would start that Etsy store. And yeah, I did do it. Do you want the link? How fucking cool. How badass, right? That is the conversation that I would like to have with you over tea when hopefully we meet up one day, maybe at a retreat or something. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this personal reflective episode. My back is acting up, so I'm going to have to move and let you go. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Mwah. If you're enjoying our self-love podcast, please take a moment to leave a comment or a review letting me know what your biggest takeaway was. As somebody who works mostly behind the scenes on this podcast, I love hearing from you, and it just keeps me connected to the purpose, which is always to spread the gift of self-love.